So, hi everyone again. I'm going to talk about GraphQL, and this presentation I'm borrowing from another place. So this presentation was with Terry and Praxi. We are going to do just Terry here. And I'm Matheus Paiva. I didn't introduce myself in the other talk. I'm a journalist. I used to be a journalist and a hippie, and now I'm a developer at XHub. And yep. So what is GraphQL? GraphQL is not a database, as some people already told me. And it's not going to kill REST. And it's not an architecture as REST is. It's just a query language and an implementation of how to parse that query language. Just that. And how does it work? It works over HTTP, and it has a single endpoint. It's usually GraphQL, and you use always a post method. You never use get or delete or put or patch or whatever. It's just a post method with payload, and that payload has your query, and that's a query, and it's very graphical. And you can see that in this case, you're getting a user with the user ID and name and the profile picture with some URI and width and height and the user list of friends and whatever. And what problem GraphQL solves? It reduces the round trips between the client and the server. So imagine that you have a server with a lot of endpoints, like microservices, and your endpoint has to go there and get that data and assemble that data from, for example, 5 different endpoints, fetch it and assemble it in the client. With GraphQL, you don't have to do that. You have a layer between the client and the server, and this layer could be, for example, in the same server as the microservices. And this layer is going to assemble all of the resources you need, and it will return just the data you need. So if you have, for example, to do 5 round trips to the server, you are going to do just 1. And another problem is the granularity of data, because when you are working with REST, for example, if you request a source, if you request a resource, you are going to have a lot of the data from the resource. And of course, you can use some framework to limitate the data that the server is going to respond to the client. But GraphQL gives you by default, gives it by default. And actually, GraphQL has as well an IDE like Swagger. It's already built in GraphQL. And if you use Express with Node with Express, you can use it out of the box. And this is the GraphQL with an I. And this is the IDE. You have the documentation there. You can have the descriptions of the types you have. You can have all of the queries you can make. A lot of the mutations you can make. So we are going to talk about 2 types of actions you can make with GraphQL. And one is query, to query data, and mutation to delete, update, or push new data. And that's it. There is a lot of things, but the basic is it. So in this example, we are asking a to-do list. And inside the to-do list, we want the name of the to-do and the user that made that to-do. And inside the user, we want the list of the to-dos of that user, so we can make that infinitely. And what we built with that was a to-do list, and we can see for every tweet, for every to-do, a statistic per user. And I'm going to show the code that generated this. So in here, in this example, we have a server that is a layer for another APIs, and a client that's written in React. This server has an index that is the entry point for express stuff and things like that. And the schema is where we are going to declare our types and how to resolve that types to the APIs. So this is our mock data. And this is a normal Express server. And the only part that's different is the highlighted part, the app.use GraphQL. And that's all it needs to have a GraphQL server. Now, here, we have a schema that we are importing from the other file. I'm going to show you. The schema has a to-do type and a user type. So in the to-do type, I'm saying that we have an ID, that's an int, and title, that's a string, and completed, that's a Boolean, and user. And the user I'm resolving because we are connecting it to another API. So I'm saying that I want to resolve it, sending it to fetch the user from other API. And here in the user type, we have ID, name, job title, and if we want the list, we can fetch it from this API. And here we have the query root, and I think there is the mutation root as well. No, it's in another part of the code. But so here we are telling how to resolve the list of to-dos and the list of users. And here is the mutation. So I created a mutation called update to-do. And here you can tell if the to-do is completed or not. And from the client side, things are much more simpler than with REST. You just have to configure your client. We are using Apollo. That is an abstraction over GraphQL. And you can configure it passing the endpoint. You remember that we only use one endpoint with GraphQL, and that's it. And now we have a provider. And inside the to-dos, we can consume that queries using that provider information. So all we have to do is to mount our query. This is the same query that we mounted in the IDE. So we have that information here, and we can update to-do. It's very simple. And with that query, now we just have to pass that query to the Apollo query component. That's a component that will return to us a function, and that function has data, loading, and error, and that's all we need. So, yeah, just it's annoying. So with that, I can update and query data. And that's it. Now, if you want to fork this project, this is the repository. We have 3 branches. The master is a very basic project. And intermediate, we have the front end more evolved. And in the advanced, we have some performance adjustments on that project. Thank you very much.